right, guys, today's gonna be a pretty long one, so sit back, relax, get your popcorn, and let's get ready to see a giant dinosaur battle face-off. We are gonna see a battle analysis between Sue, who is, I'm pretty sure, a real-life dinosaur that they found. Fossils, obviously. And Rexy, who's obviously not real, but in the Jurassic franchise. Who do you got, Sue from real life or Rexy from Jurassic? By the way, I think I'm getting that right. I'm almost positive that Sue was the one found in real life. Anyway, shout out to Goji Center for the video, and like I said, let me know, who do you have, real life
the battle
or Jurassic?
Arena will witness two of the most iconic predators in history clash in a battle that will determine who is the superior Rex.
The superior, you know what I'm saying?
The relentless predator that does not take no
that's
for
not,
an answer.
That's not Sue.
With feared reputation and queen of his Lanublar, Jurassic's Rexy.
Okay, listen, Rexy's nice with it.
A well-known predator proved to be a battle-hardened warrior with an imposing build, making it one of the largest Cretaceous predators ever found. Sue, the Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Tell him, Sue.
Everything we know about these two animals
now, who
will
looks
be
better?
compared one-to-one,
Rexy.
pitting their weapons,
Rexy looks
mass,
better.
and physical abilities to determine which one of these Rexes will win in a face-off.
But I got Sue.
Who wins and who falls defeated.
Let me know who
this
you have in the comments.
T-Rex versus T-Rex. Killer versus killer.
I like that.
Who will win? Find out at the end on Monster Face-Off.
Oh, I love these monster
This
face-offs,
face-off will
dude.
involve both the most famous
If you guys
dinosaur in
haven't yet,
cinema
scroll down
and
for
the
me, hit that
best
subscribe button.
dinosaur of all time.
And let's get to it.
Seemingly
Shout out
both
Goji.
paleontological evidence and feats seen on screen differ greatly. Even the slightest nuance will be taken into account to reveal who takes the edge in each category.
So Sue is kind of like the real life,
we'll
obviously.
Bear to a simulation pitting
more
both
real life
of these
look.
animals and how they would react and deal with upon seeing each other for the first time.
Yeah,
With
Rexy
that
looks a
in
lot
mind,
better, dude.
Let's move on to the first attribute.
Mass. Okay.
It goes without saying that Tyrannosaurus Rex had the most robust build out of any of the land predators in Earth's history.
They're both huge.
Every rendition of the T-Rex in the past, regardless of their
The
paleo
old
accuracy,
school.
is portrayed to be a powerful dinosaur with an imposing physique. Rexy was no different. Her design in the films is largely adherent to the Tyrannosaurus as it was known in the 1980s, and the design portrayals
I've
of
always
said
loved
dates.
the
More
Jurassic
specifically, the
Park
T-Rex specimen
world
in the American
T-Rexes.
Natural History Museum. Rexy, for her
Any
film
of them.
debut, had very large feet, very skinny legs, a thin torso, and blocky face with skin that is shrink-wrapped to the skeleton. This specimen, according to Dr. Thomas Carr, died out around the age of 26 and is estimated to have weighed 7 to 7.5 tons. This one had a taller build than many other Rexes, which does translate to Rexy, who has a height of up to 18 feet depending on posture.
That's
in
crazy.
Today's battle simulation, and for the sake of fairness, we'll study Rexy at her prime. Her weight did fluctuate in the movies, being horribly skinny in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom and visibly bulking up again in Jurassic World Dominion. To get the most accurate weight metric possible, the Goji Center research team will resort to volumetric analysis, using a three-dimensional model of Rexy and scaling her to adult proportions.
I like
the
it.
end result being an animal weighing in at close to 8.86 tons.
That is
How will the
so many
accurate
pounds.
Sue compare? This was first known about around the year 1990, but wasn't studied until after Jurassic Park
Real
came
life
out.
Sue.
At that point, Sue became easily one of the most understood T-Rex skeletons of all time.
Rexy is obviously the better look and the better name.
In her late 20s, if not early 30s.
I don't know.
A T-Rex who survives this long would have been exceptionally large, which was the case for this animal. New understanding of T-Rex now reveals that Sue was actually in the highest percentile when it came to size, with other specimens like Scotty being the one other well-studied specimen in the same size class.
Sue and Scotty.
Sue is still easily way above average for a Tyrannosaurus.
Yeah, Sue's a savage.
Because
Sue
her
the
skeleton
savage?
is so complete,
The
we can use
superior?
volumetric analysis on her body to get a better idea of how massive she could have been. This was possible thanks to our friends at EoFauna, a team formed by researchers, creatives, and specialists focused on prehistoric fauna.
Oh, that's sick, actually.
High-detailed and
shout out to
models
EoFauna.
of several prehistoric creatures, such as Giganotosaurus, Ankylosaurus, the Paleoloxodon, and, of course, one of Sue. Using the most up-to-date skeletal reconstructions, EoFauna created the most accurate model of Sue possible at 1/35 scale. Eofauna provided Goji Center with a 3D model of this specific T-Rex specimen to step into the analysis platform and square off against Rexy later.
That's so sick. I can't wait to see that fight at the end.
Analysis placed Sue in ranks much higher than previously estimated, which in the 90s was around 6 tons. But a more accurate volumetric survey by Dan Folks instead puts Sue at well over 10 tons and potentially breaking 11. Sue compared to Rexy had a much higher volume despite being shorter. Generally speaking, Sue is about 20% more massive than Rexy at her highest weight estimate. Don't
take
let
it from
this
me.
profile fool you. The volume difference is more noticeable up front, which will be the angle Rexy
She got
will be
that
looking
wide
at the
frame
most during their encounter.
That girl's
the
a brick
skull of
house.
Sue is longer and thicker. The torso is more
Brickowski.
robust, and
Let's
the tail
go.
noticeably has more mass. Rexy is a few feet taller than Sue, depending on her posture.
Taller don't really matter in this situation here, though.
Her
I don't think.
4-foot length advantage is really due to a longer tail.
Like barely longer tail.
Edge. In this category, the one who takes the edge is the one with the most weight.
Yeah,
and
it's
weight
Sue for sure.
distribution advantage. In this case, being taller and lighter is going to give Rexy a higher center of gravity compared to Sue, meaning Sue will be much harder to topple over in a wrestling match.
That's right.
It will be Sue who will be likely to make the opponent take steps
Trying to
backward.
tell you, bro,
In
Sue's
this
getting his
category,
victory.
Sue takes the edge for mass.
Already.
But
It's 1-0.
longer and taller will prove to have other benefits. Number
We'll
2,
see.
reach.
Reach
In this
does help,
particular
but
battle
it's only- it's
scenario
not by a
between two
lot,
of the
though, you
same
know?
species, that being a species of animal that regularly got into fights with one another, we need to consider reach. The winner of this edge will determine who is more likely to strike first and more regularly. Many T-Rex skeletons, including that of Rexy, show evidence of a myriad of bite marks and battle scars on the skull. This, amongst other findings, suggests that T-Rex relied on its skull as its primary offensive weapon.
I mean,
Based on this
I don't blame
information, we can expect the simulation to show 2 T-Rexes facing each other at all times and wrestling head-on in order to be able to reach the most vulnerable areas. For this battle approach to work
I do
in
like the
favor of one
coloring of Sue a
contestant,
little bit
body
better, but
parts
the
such
look
as
goes to
elongated
Rexy for me.
torso and neck will be favorable.
Front
If
parry.
we look at how Rexy was designed in Jurassic Park, we do notice an elongated neck. That and the fact that Rexy at her prime is actually 10% longer than Sue. Part of this would be the extended tail, however, but a good chunk was at the
Sue's
torso
got that
and
chicken
neck,
head. I don't know
meaning
what it
that
is
in
to
a
me.
head-on collision, Rexy, in combination with her height, would have her jaws positioned to bite Sue's body sooner. And her being quick on her feet means exploiting this reach will be easier. Sue does have a proportionally longer skull. Her wide lower stance will make accessing points like Rexy's legs and arms
Hey, she be getting
easier
low
as they
with
are
it. I'm
lower to the
telling you,
ground.
Sue is
But
like
this
that.
does come
She
at the
is
cost of exposing
superior.
the back of the neck and back muscles to Rexy. In
Oh,
most
okay.
of the head-on encounters, Rexy
Maybe
should
it's
be
not
able
good
to have
then.
more opportunities to strike thanks to her longer reach and ability to rear up a bit higher than Sue.
Okay, I mean, that
How
makes
potent
sense.
the weapons are is another matter,
Oh.
but it does mean that the first hit will probably be inflicted by the in-gen creation, Edge Rexy.
Okay, Rexy can take
Number
reach. It's
3,
1-1 right now.
speed.
1-1.
For 2 large animals that will be fighting in close proximity,
Speed, I
the
mean,
use of
Rexy
speed
does
will
weigh
be
over 10
important
tons.
when winding up a charge or
So I
trying
feel
to
like
pull a
she's not
tactical
gonna take that.
retreat. In combat, the ability to withdraw at will is vital. The exact science on how fast a T-Rex can go has been debated back and forth, and is still debated today. The lighter
Is Rexy
reconstruction
fast
of
in the
T-Rex
movies?
in the
I don't
90s
remember.
and less precise measurement systems
I never focused on
gave
the
it the
speed.
25 to 35 mile per hour estimate.
That's actually, like,
Consequently,
really
Rexy
fast.
was also given a
25
speed
to
within
35?
these parameters. Now, granted, this speed wasn't really showcased on screen, and also note that this recorded speed was taken from a T-Rex who wasn't fully grown, especially since we saw this same T-Rex break the scales at 44 feet in length upon maturing. Still, however,
I didn't think we ever saw him run.
T-Rexes would
Like,
be
I
able to
mean,
maintain
that's
a top
running
speed
there.
of over 30 miles per hour, and we can see this play out in games such as Jurassic World Evolution, showcasing the narrow-framed T-Rex performing running gaits when moving at top speed. Various in-gen clones, such as the buck seen in The Lost World and Big and Little Edie, were seen moving at a fast pace close to 30 miles per hour. Even Rexy in Fallen
That's
Kingdom
insane.
and Dominion was actually able to keep pace with a moving helicopter. It does seem that Rexy will require
like next time you're in a car, watch when it gets to like 30 miles an hour.
Reaching it right away.
That's how fast the T-Rex can run.
Like Sue, things were a little different.
Put it in
Since
perspective
Sue
for
turned
you.
out to be a lot heavier than initially thought, the estimated top speed was reduced considerably for a big T-Rex. During its adolescent years, Tyrannosaurus would have been exceptionally fast before it put on a lot of bulk, trading speed for sheer size as it grew.
I would trade
Sue
that.
at her prime would be nowhere near as fast as she was when she was a teenager.
Nah,
study
10
of more
plus tons?
updated
No
models
way.
places the speed of
And look at the
13 to
legs, like
15
they're not that
miles per
thick
hour
with
for her size and age.
She
This
ain't got
metric
them legs
is
like that.
still
13 to
arguable.
15.
For instance, paleontologist and
That's
research
high.
director at Eofana, Esier Laramendi, developed a mathematical equation for estimating theropod speed. In Sue's case, the initial calculation was 25 kilometers per hour, but was likely too conservative because the body mass boundary was too low.
I'm
it was
outrunning Sue
speculated that 35
on a good
kilometers
day.
per hour was more realistic. For comparison, that would be the top speed
I don't
of
know
a fit
about that
person
one.
running a 100-meter dash in 12 seconds. Estimates may change,
That's
but
me.
this is just to show Sue's top speed hasn't
Maybe, I
been
don't
set
know.
in stone yet. T-Rex legs were better for faster-paced movement than those of an elephant, and these animals already reach 25 kilometers per hour. So this is why many paleontologists speculate that animals like Sue could fast walk at higher speeds. Truth be told, there's absolutely no real reason for these two animals to be running at full sprint during the majority of the fight.
Yeah,
only
that's
needing
true.
To run
So it
this
doesn't
fast
really
when
matter.
ramming or running away. In this fight, Rexy will have the best chance to pull off a retreat quicker if things turn south, and move to better terrain if the environment allows it. For this
Rexy
category,
wins again?
Rexy takes the edge in
All right,
speed.
it's 2-1 Rexy right now.
Number 4, agility. More important
Well,
than speed
I feel like
when locked
Rexy's
into
gonna win that
close
one,
quarter
too.
combat, the winner of this edge will have a critical advantage when it comes to targeting vital areas and getting around the opponent.
That was
The
disrespectful.
InGen Tyrannosaurus have been regularly outflanked, even by larger dinosaurs. In the midst of combat, they tend to rapidly step around in order to change position and direction. Despite being smaller and lighter, the bull from JP3 had a hard time staying atop the Spinosaurus.
Hey,
and
okay.
Big Edie from Camp Cretaceous was roughly comparable against the same foe.
So maybe
This
that
is
means
in
Sue
stark contrast
has the
to
advantage
real
here on
thing.
agility.
It is actually possible that some of the large predators in the same size class as T-Rex could run faster, but this comes with a trade-off: maneuverability. We've discussed the specifics of Tyrannosaur hip anatomy before, but this advantage cannot be understated. T-Rex shares common ancestors with Coelurosaurs, like birds and raptors, those who climbed trees and made their way through thick forests, while at the same time the ancestors of giant carnosaurs like Spinosaurus and the Giga were roaming open spaces. In this case, Sue's hip anatomy is much more optimized for agility than speed. To put this very simply, if a dinosaur's anatomy has better muscles and bones for speed, this means that there is a deficit on agility. In contrast, legs built to help maintain stamina but also change direction quickly
So Sue
have to
takes this round, is
sacrifice
what you're telling
rigidity for agility. Whatever InGen did to increase their T-Rex speed might have compromised some of their agility. This is why even a fully grown Tyrannosaurus could make a 180-degree pivot on a single foot, being capable of rapidly changing direction. For comparison,
That's
note
kinda
that
crazy.
the same study that found T-Rex to be as agile as it was gave it a score of about 2 to 2.5 times higher than that of Giganotosaurus, despite T-Rex being heavier. In Jurassic World, Rexy was only roughly as agile as the Giga in Dominion, despite it being noticeably heavier. In this upcoming battle simulation, the extraordinarily fast animal will witness how surprisingly agile its ancestor actually
2-2
was.
right now, guys.
For this
2-2.
category, Sue takes the edge for agility.
It's tied up, ladies and gentlemen,
Number 5,
going into the
senses.
half.
It's now time to discuss the battle attribute that will allow one of these to be able to lock into the opponent. But more importantly,
See, I don't
who
know
can
how they
spot
would
the
know
other
that in
first.
real life.
This helps with setting up
They didn't
surprise
find their
attacks or
eyes, you
making
know what I'm
hiding
saying? Like, how
useless
would
if
they
one
know?
of them decides to run away.
Jurassic
Both
Park, they
animals
do whatever
have
they want.
extremely good senses of smell, which means ambushing the other by pure scent protection is an even game.
See,
and
I don't know
rely
how they
more
know
on
that,
who would
bro.
be able to position themselves upwind, or just make less noise before they're spotted. The thick pads on Sue's feet and the ability for her to pick up on low-frequency sounds would make it easy for Sue to pick up on Rexy's booming footsteps, in contrast to her own, which makes her almost undetectable to the ear. For actual fighting, however, the main concern would be the eyesight, and this is where things can get tricky. The
It is
eyesight of
tricky,
Sue
'cause
and
how do they
Rexy
know
may
about Sue?
initially seem similar, but there's more than meets the eye here.
I see what you
Sue
did
would
there.
have a
I see what you
55-degree
did there.
field of binocular vision and a highly developed fovea. Rexy, on the other hand, due to her eye orientation and broadened
I guess
snout,
they can
would have
tell
less
from where
binocular
their eyes
vision
are
than
placed.
Sue. This does mean that Rexy would have a wider range of vision than Sue. Rexy's eyesight does have an infamous drawback that we must mention. In the Jurassic franchise, the concept of whether or not a T-Rex can see stationary objects has gone back and forth. Putting it all together, the answer might be that they can see stationary objects, but would key in on moving targets a whole lot more. This lack of precise vision might also explain why InGen T-Rexes in many situations in the franchise tend to flail about, attacking anything they can reach instead of focusing on potential weak spots that would end the battle much quicker. And let's be real, with that kind of bite, T-Rex would end all fights very fast. But in many cases, they didn't. They just try to bite down and bash anything they can get in striking range. This also suggests a less than optimal degree in depth perception. Sue, meanwhile, like most real-life Tyrannosaurus, had superb vision, and especially perception. As stated in a presentation by Dr. Thomas Holtz, a key reason why T-Rex had a good depth perception might have been in part adapting to dodge retaliation attacks from very directional-oriented opponents like
such a crazy-looking dinosaur,
where you have to get around the horns to avoid getting hurt and injure the prey animal. So, knowledge of where the critical points are isn't going to do you much good if you don't have the ability to accurately hit them. Her wide field of vision would allow Rexy to not be snuck up on by other animals, but at the cost of
vision goes crazy.
Precision.
That's like me looking
that way. Has the entire fossil record speaking in her favor, with plenty of fossils showing evidence that T-Rex would bite the tail to disable locomotive muscles, restraining the frill of a Triceratops to avoid getting gored, or controlling the face of another T-Rex to avoid getting bit. Rexy's more maniac strategy, because of her senses, would probably land more hits, but Sue would likely be targeting critical points. For this category, the edge will go to Sue.
3-2, let's go Sue!
Number 6, experience. This may seem like an odd thing to quantify, but if we're going to compare an animal that lived in the wild in a natural ecosystem with regular growth patterns and a wide variety of opponents to a bioengineered creature growing in an artificial ecosystem, then yes, discussing this attribute is a must.
Nah, Sue's taking this one for sure. I'm calling it right now.
Sue was an individual with tons of valuable experience under her belt.
Sue was in the wild, brother, you know?
Encounters with other predators.
She had to fight everything.
Remnant evidence of this is the myriad of healed battle scars and injuries on the face and body, showing old wounds, infections, and healed fractures. Broken ribs that might have come from hunts or fights with other tyrannosaurs. If we take into account the type of dinosaurs that Sue hunted down, compare them with those that Rexy had to encounter on a regular basis, we'll see that there is a difference in the type of dangers both had to encounter.
Now, Rexy did have to fight some interesting creatures here.
Ceratopsians, hadrosaurs that dwarfed the pathetic miniature-sized Parasaurolophus and Oranosaurus from Nublar, and higher number of T-Rex encounters than Rexy ever had. Fossils of several prey animals, including one of a T-Rex, show that the tail was a primary target. One of the most popular findings in T-Rex research was that of the infamous Y-Rex, a T-Rex specimen that was found with part of its tail missing. The common consensus being that it was probably another T-Rex that bit it off, suggesting that animals like Sue would consider this body part as a target and a way to handicap another rival predator, hindering mobility in the future. An animal as old as Sue would have had an opportunity to inflict these countermeasures against other T-Rexes more frequently, whereas Rexy couldn't. Rexy, throughout her life, has faced a much lesser amount of larger theropods. It is important to mention now that Rexy is legendarily aggressive. Almost every single time she encountered another large carnivore, not of her own kind, her instinct was to attack it. Even when the dinosaur is physically bigger than her, she still rushes it.
She was always ready to go.
Every single time, she ended up losing. This also translates when it hunts. Unlike the real animal, Rexy seems to be very noisy and reckless. It was only after her later years when we saw her make smarter decisions, like backing off when facing a superior animal like Biosyn's modified Giga. This, however, was knowledge that would have been acquired by Sue much earlier in her lifetime.
Yeah, Sue wins once again. It's going to be 4-2
most
Sue.
Of her life out in the wild, growing up amidst other deadly herbivores and rival T-Rexes, Rexy would spend the same span of time in an enclosure with goats as the main entree. For this category, the clear edge will go to Sue for combat experience.
4-2.
Number 7,
Sue.
intelligence. Before we compare these crushing bite forces, let's try to figure out who
I don't
have
know
a
who's
better
smarter.
chance of figuring out the opponent's intentions and weaknesses faster than the other.
This one can go either way.
T-Rexes show pretty advanced intelligence,
I just don't know about their
especially when
brain.
coupled with others of their own kind or by themselves. Jurassic Rex's behavior inclines slightly towards the emotional realm. One example is how she willfully didn't attack Blue after the Indom was dealt with. Whether this was out of respect or appreciation for the raptor, or Rexy simply being pragmatic, is debatable. But consider how this same thing happened when Therizinosaurus showed up to attack the Giga.
The
Here,
fairy.
Rexy chose to not attack the Therizinosaurus afterwards. Again, whether this was a form of respect or just simply self-preservation, it still proves that Rexy has moments where she can make good decisions. Rexes in this franchise are quite vengeful and will look to get payback given the opportunity. Such
That
as
gas
the
in the
grudge that
background was
laid waste
under
to
like
parts of San
under
Diego after
$2,
the
bro.
Buck's
Where was
offspring
that?
was taken from him. Or
Let me
Big
get
Edie
some of
looking
that.
for a rematch after the
Dang.
Spino initially took her down. Back to Rexy, we see her constantly use the environment to her advantage, such as bashing the Indom into buildings after realizing that just biting down wasn't really working, and figuring out that throwing the Giga into another opponent, one with really pointy weapons that is, would likely end bad for the Giga. And it sure as
It definitely
was.
did.
Actions such as testing the electric fence before proceeding to knock it all the way down are all examples that Rexy, like the other InGen creations, were some of the smartest animals in this franchise.
So I think Rexy's going to
These
take
are
this,
all
and it's going to be
feats seen
4-3.
on camera, but what about those of a specimen that died 66 million years ago? Figuring out the intelligence of an already extinct animal is difficult. Methods such as
how would you
brain-to-body
even know that?
ratios in certain animals have already been proven to be inaccurate in some cases, especially when it comes to birds and reptiles. Being bird-brained per se is actually kind of a compliment, as these modern dinosaurs have typically extremely dense neuron networks in their brains despite them being small. Larger animals tend to have proportionally smaller brains, and is led on the stereotype idea that dinosaurs, especially the really
I see,
big
I didn't
ones,
even know that.
are
I love
dumb.
watching these
T-Rex
because
had
you
one of, if
learn
not
stuff,
the
you know?
largest brain of all dinosaurs, both in absolute terms and just relative to its size. Social behaviors are one of the only concrete pieces of evidence we have, with more evidence of T-Rex cooperating with each other than what we have of raptors. This, along with a fairly lengthy growth stage and not reaching full size until 20 years old, this means that they had more time to learn by both experience and watching individuals from their own group. Not all T-Rexes growing up would have made it to adulthood. A common trait of infantile behavior is recklessness.
Yeah,
So
they get
there
a little
would be
too
cases
aggressive.
in which a less intelligent Rex would
And that
get
trait
itself
goes
killed
hard, bro.
in front of another T-Rex who
watch out.
surely won't make the same mistake again. Sue probably being one of them. T-Rex bites to the horns and frill of Triceratops, tail of Edmontosaurus, and face of Ankylosaurs shows these predators knew how to disable prey effectively by both avoiding their weapons and minimizing the chance
I
of
think
getting
Rexy
hurt.
takes this
The common estimate accepted amongst many scientists has it that T-Rex was as intelligent as many modern predators, such as large cats and birds of prey. All of these animals do show the vengeful traits that were seen in the InGen Rexes, who do share complex affection and care for each other. For this category, a fair level of intelligence is an attribute
Oh,
equally
bet, it's a
present
tie.
in both of these animals.
So it's still, well,
Making this
what
a
is it now?
draw in intelligence.
5-3?
Now, let's get to the bloody business.
I think it's 5-3.
Number 8, bite effectiveness. Now it's time
Rexy
to delve
would
into
have
the
to win both
legendary
of
bite
these
force
for
that
it to be a
established
tie.
T-Rex
These
as
two
the
last
sovereign
sections
apex
here.
land predator of all time.
Let's see.
Furthermore, this fight will feature two very similar bite forces, but the damage inflicted isn't entirely identical. Both
Yeah,
tyrannosaurs
see, I don't know
have
about this
roughly
one. We'll see.
comparable-sized jaws and teeth. Depending on how many teeth make contact, the PSI metric for the bite force could vary wildly, but averaged between 8K to 10K PSI.
That's insane.
Because
I don't even know
both
what
InGen
PSI is,
and
but I
real
know
T-Rex
that's
have,
insane.
on paper, similar biting forces.
big number for
The main
that.
focus of this section and what will determine who has the most effective bite will be the slight nuances in the shape of the teeth. The narrower, more knife-like serrated-shaped teeth of Jurassic
Different
Park
teeth
T-Rexes
shape,
were
huh?
modified by the animatronics modeling team to make them look more menacing than the real thing. Believe
Okay,
it
so
or
it's gonna
not,
be
this
Rexy.
seemingly more frightening look ironically hinders the full bite force potential.
Oh, really?
Yes, knife-like serrated
Well, I don't
teeth
even
like
know
those
then.
of the Giga and Carcharodontosaurus are better for slicing and shredding victims, so in theory, shouldn't these InGen T-Rex teeth have the ability to slice and shred like a Carnosaur? To a degree, yes, but there's a reason why Carcharodontosaurid skulls look like this and not like this. For these knife-like
What's
teeth
the
to
reason?
work effectively, the shape of the skull and articulation on the jaw muscles made it easier for the Giga to open its mouth wider and snap down much quicker than any T-Rex could. Carnosaurs like the Giga would bite with rapid movements and cause lacerations and extremely bloody wounds. The actual T-Rex had a very
so Rexy's
different
gonna win
strategy.
this.
And Jurassic, as they normally do in this franchise, ended up nerfing Rexy's bite by mounting on the wrong teeth.
Or maybe
the
it's
real
because they
T-Rex
nerfed.
teeth are serrated and can lacerate flesh, but their more robust teeth are actually primarily built for piercing, gripping, and wrenching off chunks of meat. These may possibly be the culprit as to why most of the bites from an InGen T-Rex are easily shrugged off by rival predators. For a T-Rex, securing a firm hold is crucial. With an 8 to 10,000 psi bite force, teeth that slice through flesh this easily wouldn't really hold too well, but cut just fine. And yes, this will most definitely be painful. But the real T-Rex teeth, in contrast, are a different story. A 2005 study found that the optimal bite gap between 28 to 63 degrees would inflict the highest biting pressure around the latter part of the jaw. Biting on anything too wide would diminish bite force. And yes, this rule will apply to both T-Rexes. But for Sue, this wouldn't be a big deal.
Nah, here we
Remember,
go. So
real
Sue's gonna
T-Rex
win
depth
again.
perception
And if
was
Sue
superior,
wins this one,
which allows it to
I
pinpoint
don't think Rexy
exactly where
stands
to
the
bite
smallest
and where
chance,
it will
really.
be most effective. This
It's
gets
gonna be
worse.
6 to 3.
Another study showed that unlike other theropods, T-Rex teeth differed slightly across the maw. The teeth in front were for securing a firm grip, whereas the middle ones punched deep, and the ones in the back applied the most force.
That's crazy.
Although Rexy's superior range might make it land more hits, one well-targeted bite from Sue would be catastrophic. As soon as these teeth sink in, the only way to escape would be to leave a chunk of flesh behind.
So
And
basically,
be it a vital
Sue is
organ
gonna
or
win
vulnerable
again,
area,
and Sue's
the
gonna win the
opponent
whole
will
thing.
most definitely be looking at a potential fatal injury.
I remember
the real
that episode.
Thing shows why nature's authentic product once again proves
Brother,
superior.
Sue
For this
is taking
category,
this home.
Sue takes the edge for bite effectiveness.
Yes, she does.
Part 9, auxiliary weapons.
I mean, we can watch
Apart
this one,
from
but
using
Sue
their skull
takes
for
the
inflicting
victory.
lethal
It's
bites,
6 to
and
3
given
right
that
now.
in this fight, both of these combatants will be looking straight at each other for the majority of the fight, both animals will likely use their skulls as a form of blunt force weapon. Now, Tyrannosaurus Rex was not specialized for head bashing like Carcharodontosaurids, but they could manage some pretty respectable forces with their robust skulls and mass. The points of contact that we'll compare in this section will be the lacrimal and post-orbital bones.
Bro,
forming
I
the
think-
brow ridge. One
maybe
might think that
Rexy's
these two
gonna win
Rexes
this
have
one.
identical skulls, but just like animals today, not every skeleton is exactly the same. And this is the case with both the skulls of Sue and Rexy.
I don't know,
For Rexy,
bro.
we'll take
Sue
impact
can take
surface
this.
area and speed into account, forming a
I
speculative
think the fight's gonna be a
reconstruction of her
blowout
skull
either way.
based on head shape.
I think it'll
We
be
see that her
decent at first,
post-orbital
but then
bones are pointed, meaning
Sue's
the force
taking it
will
home.
focus on a smaller area, yielding a higher PSI.
Now that I've seen
By
all this.
crunching these numbers into the impact force formula,
What are
we get
those
an estimate
numbers?
of a hit that inflicts 11,000 PSI.
What is
Assuming
that
Rexy
math,
was able to
bro?
wind up enough
I
speed
don't
and
like
ram
math.
the opponent perfectly.
M
Committing to
times
such blows
V2
does have
or
risks,
squared, huh?
especially if striking another skull head-on.
I'm good off that.
Instead, Rexy would aim to hit a soft area such as the flank or rib cage, causing bruising, or if Sue is caught off guard, fracturing some ribs. By comparison, Sue had a much more smoother skull compared to many tyrannosaurs. Even with any keratinous brow buildup, the point of contact would be spread along a wider area. Even
Sue is
factored
just
in with her
bopping.
top running speed, this would still inflict lower damage forces than Rexy. A more tenable strategy would be leveraging her faster rotation speed.
Yeah,
This way,
Rexy's
Sue
gonna
would
win this
likely
one, but like I
deploy
said, I don't
head
think it
bashing,
matters
pivoting
too
on her
much.
feet to swing aside to bludgeon if they can't land a bite. Doing so with optimal windup might produce forces of up to 4,500 PSI over a wide area. Now, admittedly, both the 11,000 and 4,500 PSI would happen under optimal circumstances. So, logically speaking, the final impact forces in a fight would be much lower. In order for this to be at all effective, Sue would have to use this maneuver to spar or even parry an incoming bite from Rexy. This is extremely useful and may open a way for a counterattack, especially coming from an aggressive Rexy. The edge for this category will be given to an animal that can inflict
Can we
the
get a
most
looks
damage.
category?
If Rexy does
Rexy
decide to
wins
wind
that.
up a charge with enough distance and actually lands
So
a
this-
hit,
this
the
one kind of
damage will be
varies.
greater, weakening or bruising
It just
Sue if hit
depends
the
on
right
the
spot.
hit that they
The
do, I
numbers
guess.
speak for themselves, and Rexy's impact force is indeed greater. Whether Sue is able to reverse this or survive this impact remains to be seen, but for this category, Rexy will take a clear edge when it comes
Rexy
to
can take it.
auxiliary
I
weapons.
think it was, what, 6 to
We
4?
are almost ready to unleash our combatants to the simulation.
There was 10 categories. Sue won 6, Rexy won 4.
The X Factor attribute.
There's an X Factor? Hold on.
Relentlessness will be taken into account. In this special edition of Monster Face-Off, we'll include this new attribute to explain something interesting
I feel like Rexy's pretty relentless
in this fight.
Out of all the
real
battles
world,
we've seen,
encounters between two apex predators tend to end with the loser retreating from the fight. No point in culminating a battle that was clearly lost. This was most likely the case back when a T-Rex encountered another T-Rex. In the past, carnivores absolutely could be brutal, but only
if you're
to
getting
the same
cooked,
degree
just
that
go
they
home,
are now.
you know? Just go
a study
home.
on
Take
lion
your L and go
fatalities
home.
by George B. Scheller and a similar study of tigers found that same-species combat accounts for only 15% of adult fatality rates. This sounds like a lot, but that is actually lower than combat with other different species. Similarly, we can deduct that the vast majority of the fights between the two Rexes did not end in fatalities. Numerous healed injuries on the face of T-Rex skeletons are a testament to this. Not that they couldn't kill each other, they most certainly could. It's just that they didn't have to kill each other every time. InGen theropods, meanwhile, were anything but cautious, and self-preservation was something that wasn't kept in mind in most cases. Spinosaurus and Indominus are examples of borderline psychos when they get angry, and InGen T-Rex were no different. Almost every single time one of the T-Rex clones encountered another large theropod, they immediately go on the attack first. It makes sense that a lot of the promo material shown before Dominion's release categorized Rexy with a very high aggression level. The moment any downed InGen T-Rex catches a second wind, they are right back on attack mode. Big Edie did something similar after recovering from the neck injury, rushing back to attack the Spino, and this happened here in Dominion. After being driven back by the Giga in the first skirmish,
who's got that X Factor?
What does this aging Rexy do? Travel through a burning forest, no heed towards
I feel like
any
Rexy
fire,
has
to
that X
square
Factor.
up with a
Not
predator bigger, stronger, and much younger than her, and attack again. Why does this happen? And is there a way to explain what inevitably might happen in this face-off?
She's just like that.
The growth rate of InGen Tyrannosaurus might be partially responsible. Rexy went from hatchling to full size in only a few years. By comparison, a natural T-Rex would usually take 18 to 20 years to grow to considerable size. A real T-Rex's size would plateau at a certain age, only growing very slowly, increasing bulk as years went by. Rexy, in contrast, kept going at a steady pace in a very short time. This implies something strange going on with her pituitary
The guy
gland.
on the toilet always kills me.
Maybe an intentional genetic alteration
Unfortunately,
to try
it kills
and
him
quickly
too,
stock the first
clearly.
park with more impressive adult-sized dinosaurs, or this may have been an accident in the gene splicing phase. This gland in the brain is what controls and regulates growth, so disorders here can also affect the adrenal gland. This might explain the heightened aggression and higher than typical hunger response. This urge to attack regardless of anything and depression odds backed up by adrenal imbalances may work in favor of Rexy. Similarly, a more calmed approach and self-preservation may also kick in after. We are now ready to reveal which T-Rex will crown itself with the coveted title of Tyrant Queen.
It's gotta be
Jurassic's Rexy wins the edge in having superior reach, faster running speed, and auxiliary weapons.
Okay, not bad, not bad.
Sue, in her imposing form,
Go
wins
ahead
the
and
edge in overall mass, agility,
Show
senses,
all of
experience,
Sue.
and bite effectiveness. Both prove to be intelligent combatants thanks to feats seen on screen
6-4
and
right now.
evidence from the fossil record. Today's T-Rexes will see each other for the first time.
Let's go!
Alongside the plains and forests of the Hell
Sue
Creek Formation.
versus Rexy.
The stage is set.
And the ultimate T-Rex battle.
Coming up, Jurassic Park's Rexy versus Sue, the Tyrant Queen.
Who do y'all got? Here we go. This is what I've been waiting for. The following depicts a combat simulation between two T-Rexes. The occurrence of a facility. Here we go. Rexy versus Sue. I got Sue. I've had Sue this whole video. I'm sticking with her. All right, I'm sticking with her. Let me know who you all got in the comments. Now that you've seen everything, all the attributes, all the downsides to each dinosaur here, who do you got? I'm sticking with Sue. Oh yeah, here we go. Rexy has been spotted. And Rexy was spotted first. She hasn't even seen Sue yet. So Sue could land the first hit here, which would be detrimental to Rexy's whole career. Oh, never mind. Sue has been spotted. Sue was like, what are you doing in my territory, ma'am? That roar's kind of crazy. Sue lands the first bite, gets her a little bite. Okay, Rexy gets a bite as well. Oh, I thought Sue was taking the arm off. Oh, she did. Rexy's coat. Hey, Sue did let Rexy get up. She was like, look, you can walk away if you want to. But Rexy wasn't having it. So Sue's gotta do what Sue's gotta do, you know what I'm saying? Got the tail. Oh, got the thigh meat. Now got the tail. Give me that. Not the cameraman. Oh! Dang. Not looking good, Rexy. Not looking good for my Rexy fans. Is Rexy gonna leave? Rexy's gonna leave with one less arm, half of her tail gone, and Sue's eating the tail. That's kind of crazy.
In this battle simulation, it was Sue who came out victorious in this fight. For the first time ever in Monster Face-Off, the winner of the fight did not inflict the killing blow. This is because, as was usual in territorial dispute, the defeated dinosaur would rather take off instead of culminating an already determined loss. Had Rexy won this encounter, the end result might have been different. So, why did Sue win? Both Rexy and Sue did win the edge in important attributes, but the factors that carried more weight in this particular battle were a combination of mass, senses, experience, and bite effectiveness. This battle began with both T-Rexes being able to detect each other from far away.
I feel like agility's a good one in that too, though.
Rexy did know where a very large predator was lurking about in the same area. It was Sue, however, who managed to stealthily find Rexy first, startling her into an aggressive encounter. Rexy, as usual, would have been the first aggressor. Sue, in contrast, would have been looking to settle this dispute in a non-violent manner. But Rexy isn't wired like she is. This fight escalated a
Sue
little
was like, hey, look,
quickly.
just get out of my area. We don't have to
Rexy
make you die here.
Strike first. What should have been an initial bite turned into a missed headbutt into the flank and thigh of Sue, who with her greater agility managed to switch lanes and avoid the first bite.
And that
Sue's
turnaround
now places her in a position to bite a quickly moving Rexy, managing to bite and tear off a small chunk of flesh from the tail. Fully engaged in combat, Sue now targets the caudofemoralis muscle in an attempt to handicap the quicker opponent. Rexy, on the other hand, just now ran into a shorter but agile T-Rex. For her, it was as if she ran into a wall. After another wrestling match, Rexy's longer reach and more bladed teeth managed to inflict some nasty cuts on Sue, but it was only a matter of time before Sue managed to hit something that mattered. After missing the caudofemoralis for the second time due to her shorter reach, she quickly opts for a proportionally longer arm of Rexy, wrenching it off.
She got that arm
After
quick
this
off.
type of injury, this is where a T-Rex territorial dispute would likely end. Any other T-Rex would back off.
The T-Rex is flopping on the ground,
just
mad.
any other T-Rex.
It's funny.
This is Rexy we're talking about, so it will take a bit more to turn her away. Unable to reach the
a bit more
locomotive
like,
muscles,
half a
Sue
tail.
now resorts to yet another common attack maneuver against other T-Rexes. A bite to the head. With Sue's stronger teeth dug deep in her skull, and Rexy never in her life feeling anything like this, she decides that enough is enough and breaks for it. Sue, however, is not finished.
Rexy was trying to leave
off
off that.
Primary target in range, Sue now grabs a good hold of Rexy's tail. Once a T-Rex bites its teeth into something, it's just as good as lost. Rexy, in desperation and already with her mind set on retreating, leaves her tail behind. Sue, upon witnessing Rexy walk away, does not pursue. The point has most definitely been made, and Rexy will never enter this territory again.
Yeah, Rexy
Years
got
of
cooked.
paleontological study on the most popular
Did it go
dinosaur of all
how
time
you thought it was going to go? Let me in the comments. Let me know in the
biology
comments. I
and
can't
years
speak.
of evolution brought forth
It
the
went exactly
perfect
how I thought it was
killing
gonna go.
machine.
I thought
A
Sue was
perfect
gonna
balance of
destroy it.
raw strength, agility, and brains.
And she definitely
the
did.
product of nature itself once again proves to be second to none.
Shout out
Far
to Sue.
superior than the tampered product of mankind.
The superior Sue, let's get this money. Like I said, let me know if that went the way you thought it was gonna go in the comments. Thank you guys for watching with me. I will see you tomorrow. I love ya. Goodbye.